because we're not heterosexual doesn't mean that we're not capable of taking care of kids. And I think we can do we know that we have been doing a very good job for years, and we will continue on.
No kid wants to grow up like that. It's hard to handle. It's hard to handle your parents as mother and father now, you know, and just having them to be two of the same is a lot harder for a kid to even understand themselves, let alone teach their friends.
Personally, I think it's better for, let's say, a heterosexual couple. I see the value of a mother and a father. It takes two to really raise a kid.
It's a new idea for many of us, the thought of children growing up with gay parents. But there are an estimated 3 to 5 million gay families in the United States. Lesbian mothers and gay fathers are a reality, part of that increasingly diverse institution called the American family. I'm Susan Stamberg. As gay and lesbian parents become more visible, they are also becoming more controversial. In Massachusetts, gay foster parents have become the focus of debate. In 1985, amid intense controversy, that state virtually banned gay men and lesbians from becoming foster parents. Social workers were instructed to place foster children with relatives or heterosexual married couples whenever possible, except in unusual cases. Massachusetts Governor Michael Dukakis takes a strong position on this matter.
When you're talking about some 6,000 youngsters who, in many cases, are the most vulnerable kids we have, that our goal ought to be to try to provide the best possible environment for those youngsters. And all things being equal, I don't think there's much question that a good home with a father and a mother and other brothers and sisters is the best environment.
The Massachusetts foster care policy has been hotly contested by gay activists and child welfare professionals. Civil liberties lawyers have filed suit against it. But behind this very public dispute are intensely personal concerns about parenthood and family life in gay households. In the next hour, we'll meet 3 gay families, one foster, one biological, and one adoptive, and raise some very basic questions. Are the children happy? Do they have proper role models? Who are gay fathers and lesbian mothers? And in the final analysis, what is life like in a gay family?
Because we love you.
It's a shock to recognize that there are gay fathers and gay mothers. And that seems to be a real eye-opener. And because, of course, we were over there at one point. We were them. We were the straight world. And we've changed.
I don't just go up to people and say, oh, by the way, my dad's gay. My dad's gay. I mean, it's usually either comes up in casual conversation, or if my friends have already met my dad and they don't know that he's gay yet, then I tell them.
When you tell someone that your dad's gay, it's almost like you want to say it in a way to defend the whole gay community. And you want to make them understand, too.
Nicole and Bianca Santamasso are the daughters of Eugene Santamasso and his ex-wife, Ann Strauss.
You have a good time. Bye. Goodbye. Goodbye. Bye.
The girls live in New York City with their mother, only 11 blocks from their father's apartment. They spend every weekend with Gene. Ann firmly supports the girls' relationship with their father.
I look at it that every child should know their father. And not every father is going to be the greatest father. And as far as I'm concerned, that he was a gay father, his lifestyle was different, but what he provided for them was an excellent home to come to, an excellent relationship, and that was the most important thing.
You know what? I think we should get Dad something. You want to get him a pie?
Oh, they're beautiful girls.
Blueberry?
They're the love of my life.
Blueberry is...
My girls are fairly close in age and also at one another's throats as a result.
What kind do you want? Okay, we have to decide what kind we're going to get.
Let's get blueberry. Why don't we just get apple, okay? Please? Oh, blueberry.
Bianca, the older, and Nicole, the younger. They're similar in some respects, but very, very different. Very different. And as a parent, you have to recognize that. Bianca is more, in many ways, like me. She's, in terms of her striving, in terms of her drive, she is a very determined girl, very determined in terms of intellectual achievement.
Those are apple? Okay, how much will that be?
$5.50.
Okay.
Nicole is more laid back. Nicole rolls with the punches. Nicole has the other side of me. Nicole would say, let's take a nap, and I'll say, great, let's just take a nap. Nicole is more, she flows. She's really all love.
Okay. God, I hope he likes the cake.
Yeah,
that
I hope he
pie.
does too. Hi, Daddy.
Hello, Mom. See ya. Hi, babe. It's difficult being a parent, you know, when you have kids like that are so wonderful and you don't want to ruin it. From ballet? I think you could ruin it by holding up and using one child as an ideal for the other. That's what the key is, knowing each child's tempo.
I guess if kids said something to me, like, what's your father like, I'd probably say, he's just wonderful, and he's like a father and a best friend. Because we can talk to him and make jokes with him, and then we can have great fun time with him. And I like that.
He really understands kids. Like when Nicole and I get into fights, he says, well, I know what you're trying to do. I know you're trying to pull the guilt trip on your sister. I understand what you're doing. You're getting yourself in a web of lies. And I mean, it's true.
She stood at the top of the stairs.
We spend whole dinners. We just sit around, and while we're eating, we just talk about things. He talks about maturing and growing up, and some things that I'd be very embarrassed to talk with my friends about, or even my mom.
Oh, yeah.
Among other things, Gene and his daughters have talked about his sexual preference. He explained his preference to Bianca when she was 9, Nicole when she was 8. What was it like for Nicole?
I think I was in 4th grade when he told me that he was gay, and I had known that he had lived with Terry, and I had known that I hadn't known the exact term gay, but I knew.
He had set aside a day and he took me out to Chinese food. And when he told me, he tried to explain, you know, some people are different, and I don't remember exactly how, I don't even remember. But all I knew is that he told me that I had already known the meaning of, I told him, I said, well, I know, Daddy, and I didn't even want to stay on the subject.
You could say, well, then why do you suppose it was necessary to tell her? It's always necessary for the parent, I think, to say, even if the kid knows. Bianca was, I think, grateful that I told her, even though she knew, because it was blown away. The issue was out. I see something there. What is that I see?
That's what we asked for you.
What? A pie!
How do you know it's a pie?
I can tell by the box.
Might be cookies.
This is from Aimee?
Cookies are cake.
Is this from Aimee?
No, it's for...
That's
from
great.
us. Because we love you.
Oh, thank you.
It's for you too, Terry. It's for all of us to eat.
Sure. Terry doesn't eat
Hope you
pie.
like it.
He can't have any because he doesn't like sugar.
You can have some of this.
What's that?
Gene feels it's always necessary for a gay parent to come out to his children. But was he burdening his girls with knowledge they were too young to handle? Dr. Sharon Satterfield, a child psychiatrist and expert on gay parents, says honesty usually works best.
We found that any big sexual secret in a family usually tends to be bad. Children are able to pick up the fact that there's a secret, and that tension that exists around the secret is often very destructive. Once they finally figure out why mom or dad is acting so strangely, they can be much more comfortable and they don't have the anxiety that they did before.
Who's going to be the banker?
I am.
Good. No.
1, 2,
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh no, States Avenue. Yes, read it. No.
Once a parent tells his children he's gay, the children then have to decide whether to tell their friends, and then which friends. Bianca says it's also important how she tells her friends.
5 and 4 is 9.
It really depends upon the people who I tell. And I usually tell them because I can tell that they're people who can understand. But I do have people in my class, I can tell that they're people who wouldn't understand. And what happens is I'm very outright in telling my friends that my dad is gay. I say it like, yeah, my dad's gay. And seeing my confidence makes them not really want to make fun of me.
You're just being nasty.
You knew she wanted hundreds.
You'd give her $20 bills if you had a choice.
Park Place, I'll buy it.
Oh, no, you don't want that.
It's usually a time when it's just you and your friend, and either you're just talking or you're not with anyone else. And it's nice to tell them individually because I think they feel that they really trust you, and I think that's part of it.
Nicole and Bianca are New York City girls, and they're relatively sophisticated and open-minded. For other kids of gay parents, though, it's sometimes harder to tell friends. Sally Crawford, a therapist who specializes in gay family therapy, says every child handles the situation a bit differently.
Kids do make decisions about, and I don't know how conscious a lot of those decisions are, about who can know and who can't know. And for the most part, probably tend to play it safe and not talk about it unless it's absolutely necessary. And again, that ranges from kid to kid. I've seen kids who will say to their friends, you know, my mother's a lesbian, you know, you're going to make something of it, to kids who, when they're asked about their mother, will say, do you think it's going to rain on Saturday for the ball game? You know, and everything in between.
And each tent had to do this.
I'm very concerned about my daughters and how they grow up, how they become adult women. We're very free with one another, and I like that. We're very open. They talk about all sorts of things to me.
They let you down slowly.
I get delighted when they talk about their friends and the joys and the difficulties they have with their friends.
Yeah.
Nicole, for instance, just got back from camp.
Their purpose.
After that, we had a shock, which I'll tell you about.
What was the shock?
I'll tell you that.
Oh, tell me now.
I can't tell you now.
Oh, yeah. Huh? Oh, what?
I'll tell you later, okay?
I can't hear you. Whisper what the shock was. No. Tell me now. Oh, no. That can be a horrible experience.
What happened?
But you didn't see anything you hadn't already seen.
I know. What happened? Oh, she saw the 2 boys undressing.
Some naked boy. What did you do?
I just ran away.
Oh, no.
Luckily, they didn't see us.
What happened? Did Dana see, or did you see?
We both saw. Dana saw and she pointed.
How'd you manage to take the wall?
She was like,
Oh, I think it's time to get to bed.
Okay.
Let's do it. Okay, come on.
okay, wait.
Let's do it. Quick, I want to get going.
I'll get the sheets. Okay.
They're not exposed to anything exceptional. What's it like? It's the same thing. You have the areas where you play. You have certain private areas for the family, for the parents. It's no different.
All right, who has the bathroom first? Let's show on the road.
I do.
I do.
Come on! You already made a decision.
Somehow, in the minds of people out there, they think that it's a den of debauchery in the gay household, that people are knocking themselves around, that there are dirty pictures on the walls, people are hanging out their private parts. It doesn't happen that way. The house is a normal, natural household, exuding love and care for the child. What's different is that, yes, they've been exposed to more aspects of society. They know about loving men and women loving women, as well as men and women loving each other. Maybe that's the difference. Maybe the kids are better off if I'm to push my luck and push the argument, which I guess I shouldn't do on a program like this. But if you weren't going to push it, if you're going to push, you might say that the kids are, my daughters certainly are a sign of that. They're more open and more knowledgeable and more accepting than someone who is sheltered like myself.
If he wasn't proud of who he was, then there would be no reason for him being gay at all. You have to be proud of who you are. He would have, obviously he felt that he was gay, and it just wouldn't have worked. This whole family relationship that we have, it's really working out, the way we have a family and how we all understand each other. If he wasn't proud of who he was, then it wouldn't have worked out this way.
I think that it wouldn't have worked out because you can't be proud of someone who isn't proud of themselves. Because there's no way, if they don't show that they're proud, then I don't think you can ever be proud of them.
Oh, I'm exhausted. Oh.
You have to keep being proud. If someone does something against you or says something to you, you just have to go on and forget it. You can't just stop and say, I have to change because of that person. And you can't just stop and say, well, I have to fix it. I have to have everyone like me. You really have to have yourself like you. You have to like yourself, too.
I think he acts like a normal child because we've always had normal expectations for him. We've never allowed him to act like a retarded child or an uncontrollable child. We've always expected him to act like a normal child his age, and we're very strict about that.
Families are families. Families have rules, and they're the same whether they're gay or straight.
Being gay isn't an issue, you know? Mothers and other mothers, regardless of whether they're gay or straight and married or divorced with 2 kids, or, you know, mothers are mothers.
This is the story of a gay adoptive family. In 1980, Kim and Carolyn, a Boston area lesbian couple, took in Earl, a black, deaf boy who at the time was 5 years old. Kim is also deaf, although she can speak and lip read. She brought Earl home because he literally had no place else to go.
I was working in a school for the deaf, and he'd been there living in the dorm, and the end of the school year came, and his social worker had known that she had, you know, 4 months, then 3 months, then 2 months, then 1 month, then 1 week, to find a foster home for him for the summer, and she didn't. So the last day of school happened, and there was no cab to pick up Earl, and there was no home for him to go to. And so I brought Earl home for 2 weeks, and then 3 weeks, and then 4 weeks.
Come here, Mitch. Come here. Give me that.
Eventually, Kim and Carolyn were formally approved as Earl's foster parents by Massachusetts social workers. Several years later, the 2 women adopted Earl. This, of course, was before the new Massachusetts foster care policy was put into place.
Sound as crazy as you're going to get today? Come here. Come here. Go get Earl.
The little boy Kim brought home in 1980 was in deep emotional trouble. Like many foster children, Earl had been bounced from placement to placement for most of his 5 years, and he arrived at Kim and Carolyn's a frightened and unpredictable child.
It was interesting because when we got Earl, he was crazy. He was supposed to be
totally
mentally
crazy.
retarded.
He was really uncontrollable. I took him to the park once when I was taking care of him, and he didn't want to go at first because he was afraid Kim would never come back. And so we went to the park, and when it was time to, he had a great time, of course, playing on the jungle gym and everything, and when it was time to leave again, he wouldn't leave. So I grabbed his arm, and he started hitting me. He hit me so hard that I had bruises all over my arm. And then he broke away and like ran. This was on the Esplanade, so right on Storrow Drive with no fence. And he ran full speed right to the edge of the curb and stopped and like waved his arm and screamed and laughed. It was pretty crazy.
Come, Ash.
His early life was not real healthy. He was probably physically abused. He was not fed well, we know that. And he still has very high lead levels from eating paint.
Cigarette burns on the backs of his legs, scars from cigarettes.
Then you eat lunch. Eat lunch now, 1:30. Then you eat again around 5 or track. If he just had high lead levels, you would expect to see some neurological involvement. If he was just the result of a pregnancy where toxic drugs were ingested, you'd expect to see some problems. But with everything and then throw in, you know, just total chaos for the first 5 years of his life, 6 years of his life, then you expect to see a kid that's really has a lot of problems.
You don't want mayonnaise. You don't want just plain tuna. You're weird. Okay. Yes. You want half? You want half a can? You want it all? You don't want it all. Half. Okay.
What we tried to do as parents was just first get the basic behavioral things straightened out, like, you know, eating appropriately, eating with a fork. I mean, he didn't know how to eat with a fork. He would eat with his hands. His favorite food was scrambled eggs. He'd eat it with his hands. Or he started learning to use the fork, but he'd end up with scrambled eggs in his ears.
But puppy gets the end of the carrot. Oh, Asher.
I tell people it's sort of a joke, but it's sort of true that, you know, we went through the terrible twos with him when he was 7. The first time we brought him to a toy store, he picked out toys that were like 0 to 3-year-old toys, you know. He wanted a busy board.
Enough or more?
We bought him what he wanted because it was clear he needed that. He bought that. He played with those toys for about 3 months, and then he was ready for, you know, 3 to 6-year-old toys. We bought him, you know, Fisher-Price, Play People, and things like that. He was, you know, 6 years old. And after a while, you know, he moved into age-appropriate play patterns, but it was interesting to me, because I've studied a lot of developmental psychology, that he had to go through all the stages, you know. You can't skip things.
Hey, that's your food. That's your food. Eat it yourself.
In some ways, he's still more immature than other 11-year-olds, just in terms of he still needs more external control than the normal 11-year-old would.
If another one falls, I'm going to cut up another carrot for you and make you eat it all.
Kim and Carolyn are very strict with Earl. The household's rules are specific and consistent, and Earl can recite them from memory.
No fighting. No throwing rocks. I can't watch TV with violent programs, and I have to ask permission. I have to ask my parents for permission. Sometimes I might sneak, and if my parents catch me, then I get punished, and I can't watch TV for a while.
A lot of parents limit the amount of violent TV their kids can watch. Kim and Carolyn are especially careful, though, because of the powerful effect these programs seem to have on Earl.
It seems there was a lot of violence in his early life, and when he watches a lot of violent TV, he tends to obsess on it to the exclusion of other things. And it's something that is getting better. And I think he's working through a lot of those things in his mind. But it's still, yeah, we're strict. We're horrible. We won't let him watch Mr. T and the A-Team.
Or Mad Max. Beyond the Thunderdome.
Or go see Rambo. You know, we walk past the theater and he's like, you know, I'm holding his hand. He's like, you know, he's staring at the poster until, you know, he can't see it anymore. But there's no way he's going to see Rambo. Very hard. Let me see. He has something there.
Well, I think when you do push-ups, it's over here. It's to the side.
Make a muscle. You have some work to do because you don't eat your tuna. See, look at those muscles. See, they're growing now. Do you think he's strong enough?
I don't know. Maybe.
Can you do one? Can you do one without cheating? No. No, get up, get up, get up. No, don't worry. Put your ass down. There you go. There. I'm so weak.
Together, Kim and Carolyn and Earl represent one of those rare foster care success stories.
Keep your bum up.
Earl has emerged as a normally intelligent, active young boy. But at age 11, he's just about to turn the corner into adolescence. Doesn't he need a male role model to help him find his way to adulthood? Soon after Earl first came to live with Kim and Carolyn, they began looking for a big brother for him. They didn't find a black man, as they had hoped, but they did find Joe Kenyon, who's been a regular visitor to the household ever since.
He's not without male role models. He doesn't live with a man, but he has Joe. There are other men in his life that are very important to him and that he spends time with. I think kids need to be around both sexes.
2 points. Okay. I didn't expect to be having children of my own. Thought I'd be remaining single. Yet I like kids a lot and like to share life with them, to teach them, play with them. So when I heard about the fact that Kim was looking for someone to be a big brother for Earl, I introduced myself to them and saw it through and did it.
I'll throw it up. Andy, you want to throw the ball up for us?
I am a constant man in his life. I've been in his life now for about half of it, for 6 years out of his 12. He's grown up a whole lot in those 6 years.
Good shot. One for you, one for me. Right?
It's quite common for gay and lesbian parents to seek adults of the opposite sex as role models for their children, according to experts in the field. In addition, new research on gay families is showing that even when parents don't make that effort, the children still seem to end up with the role models they need. Psychiatrist Sharon Satterfield.
The question of role modeling is based on a lot of theories that children learn from their parents and other important people in their life. And I think we can all admit that that's true to some extent. But what the scientific research has found in gay families is that children are exposed to so many role models that the importance of one parent or the other is often washed out. And even if a parent is not available to the child, there is usually a substitute.
What age group is this? Basically, they split them up after the war about this.
Earl is a child who is different. He is deaf in a hearing world, black in a predominantly white community, and the son of lesbians in a largely heterosexual culture. How does this affect him? What, for example, does he think kids in school might say if they see him in this program?
Do it right.
I don't know. Maybe they'll tease me and say, oh, your family's lousy. My family, straight people are better than gay people. My family's better.
One way to help him deal with being different is to talk about it and talk about the way the world is, and just talk about, yeah, it's true, some people don't like black people. Maybe they're jerks. If they don't change their mind after they meet you, they're jerks. Forget it. Some people don't like deaf people. That's their problem. Some people don't like gay people. That's their problem. People are different in different ways, and I think he knows that.
And he sees the same thing happening to us. Like if something comes up that someone acts differently to Kim because she's deaf, or acts differently to me because I'm Asian, we talk about it, and he sees that it happens to us too, not just to him, and it happens to, you know, his friends downstairs, and you know, he knows that it's wrong, and he sees it happening to other people, and it doesn't, and he realizes it's not just because it just doesn't happen to him alone.
Family therapist Sally Crawford.
Kids don't like to be teased. Nobody likes to be teased. I think that that's something that children have had to learn to deal with in any oppressed group that has ever existed in this culture. It affects children. It's not good for children. It's a tragedy. In some ways that the culture forces that on kids, whether they're black kids or Puerto Rican kids or the children of gay parents or whatever it is that the culture happens to be uncomfortable with or the most uncomfortable with at that time. And right now there's certainly a lot of discomfort with gay parenting, probably because it's becoming more visible.
Try your hardest.
Crawford adds that ultimately what is said to kids in cruelty is not as important as how they're cared for at home.
If they come from a family that's a comfortable family, what they experience is that there's a discrepancy between what is being said to them and what they see at home. They know that their mother takes care of them well. They feel it. They know that their mother loves them very much. They feel it. They know that their mother knows how to say, one more word out of you and you need to go to your room. They feel it, that they feel cared about in those kinds of ways. And so that it gives them some kind of strength and capacity with which to deal with what happens when the world comes at them.
We have a lot of friends that are straight and have kids, and really our family's very similar to theirs. You know, our house is a mess because we have a kid living here, so you come in and you find, you know, an airplane on the table. That's not unusual. It would be if we didn't have a kid, but I mean, it's a normal house. It's a normal house with kids. When the policy first came out, I always felt, shit, we ought to just invite, you know, the governor over here and say, come see our family. You see, we're not molesting this little boy, not that we'd want to. You know, I mean, we're just a normal family.
Hot dogs and chicken.
For Earl, the sexual preference of his parents is not nearly as important as the fact that now he has parents.
I think that it's important for families to adopt children. Because, well, there are a lot of children who haven't been adopted yet. And I feel that gay parents could adopt those children. And I feel that if gay parents adopted them, they would feel happy.
Earl would not have been adopted if we hadn't pushed, you know, and said, this kid needs to know where he's going to spend the rest of his life. And it did make a difference, even though he'd already been with us for 5 years. After he was adopted, I saw some changes in him, didn't you? Mm-hmm. Just that he knew he was going to stay. I mean, that was important. One thing was that he got mad at me for the first time, like really, really, really mad. The way kids do with their parents. He said, I hate you. You know, during an argument. The way, I mean, I said, I hate you to my mother, you did. You know, people say that to their parents. Earl never did that before he was adopted. Maybe he was afraid to. Once he was adopted, he knew he wasn't leaving. I could get furious with him. but he wasn't going anywhere.
Finish.
He knew he was staying
No,
here.
it's chicken.
You know?
Finish.
So it made a difference, and the system just lets kids float.
Finish the chicken, not finish this.
So why should they be so picky about whether or not parents are gay if the kids are wanted and loved and cared for?
Well, I have nothing whatever against homosexuals. I couldn't care less. I'm not interested in them. They are an adult. They made their own choice, and they only have to answer to God Almighty. But when they go to adopt little children, they're getting out of their field.
She don't know him. She does not know Tom or Jeremy. I think she's making accusations without knowing him. I think if she knew him, her whole opinion would change.
It's not appropriate to respond to hate and fear and ignorance with anything but who we are, which is that we are who we are, you know, and that we are caring for children. Are there a lot of bugs on the windshield?
Yes. Big ones.
Take your time with it.
I always take my time with my car. Now, if we were washing Jeremy, no.
Looks like it's gonna rain. Jeremy's coming.
Welcome to the home of Jeremy Yost and Tom Herman.
Better close the top on the truck.
The two men have been together for 15 years and are the foster parents of 16-year-old Jody Minns.
A shower?
It's worth closing the top.
Jody came to live with Tom and Jeremy in February of 1985. There was no publicity surrounding his placement here at first, but in the fall of that year, the Manchester Union Leader began running a series of articles about Jody, Tom, and Jeremy.
Hey, get that spot on top of the back roof.
A controversy erupted similar to the one in Massachusetts, with New Hampshire State Legislator Mildred Ingram calling for a ban on gay foster parents.
I'm not trying to take anybody's rights away from them. I'm just trying to protect the rights of other children, of little children that have no rights in this state. They have no one to speak up for him. You can't convince me that that's a wholesome place to bring up a child.
Eventually, the controversy even drew in Jody's biological mother, Lee Minns. Our story really begins here with this beleaguered mother of a teenage boy in trouble.
Jody's always been very active, although not hyperactive, just really wanting to do things all the time. Very creative, ambitious, with big goals in mind. Very tiring and persistent.
I ran away a couple times, and I was going to live on my own because I didn't want to deal with someone else running my life at that time because it was like they didn't know how.
He needed to be out of the house because he couldn't deal with the pressure. And I went to several organizations to find help, to put him in a foster home or, you know, to find some sort of help. And I was really given the runaround and was told that there is no help for him because he was not a delinquent.
What was it like running away? Well, it was a relief for a little while because, you know, I didn't have to deal with anybody. But then, you know, it'd come time, it's like, well, I'm hungry, I want to go home, like that. Or it's raining out, I don't want to be out here and stuff.
He wound up committing an attempted armed robbery before anything was actually done to get him out of my house. The night he did that, they were looking for him, and I was terrified he was going to get hurt or hurt someone else. You know, he was really desperate, he really was. He's not a criminal. You know, he's not a criminal person, and he was desperate. We were all desperate.
The next day, a social worker called Tom at the publishing house where he worked and asked him to take in Jody as a foster child. Tom and Jeremy had had extensive foster parent experience, having run a group home for teenagers, as well as counseling families in crisis. Tom decided to go and visit Jody in the youth detention center where he'd been locked up.
The first words out of my mouth in this strange environment, talking to this young man on a stairway, was to say, "My name is Tom, and I'm a gay man, and I live with a man named Jeremy Yost, and we have a home that you'll be welcome in tomorrow. But I want you to think about what it means for us to be gay and to be a gay couple, and how you feel about that and what your reaction is to that, so that you can talk to your caseworker, you can talk to your parents about that and see how it is for you. And if you want, if you're uncomfortable about it, we can try and arrange someplace else for you to be, because it's important for me that you know right from the beginning who we are, because we'd like to know right from the beginning who you are. His response to me was, whatever, you know.
Meaning that it didn't matter to me what they were in their private lives or public lives. They were themselves and I was myself, and if they could have been prejudiced because I was getting in trouble.
Jody went home with Tom and Jeremy the next day and has stayed ever since. The social worker who placed Jody here was Paul Kane. Kane says Tom and Jeremy's sexual preference was simply not an issue in this case.
Tom and Jeremy's being gay really had nothing to do with my initial interest in placing Jody here. What actually came to mind was that this was a foster family that could work with Jody because of his special needs. It was someone I knew that wouldn't give up on Jody. It was someone who had the education, the counseling background that I needed. I needed more than just foster care, more than a loving couple to take care of this boy. We were guaranteeing the court that they would know where he was, that they would deal with him. We were an alternative to a lockup unit at that point.
Hey, Jody, tell Paul about what's going on with you.
I'm just applying to Northfield, Mount Herman, to Northfield, Mass.
When we did place Jody here, he was scared. He didn't trust anybody. He tested here, and in any other foster home I had, he would have been kicked out, and then he would have just said, see, I told you, nobody cares about me.
Okay, that's super. Well, if you need any like recommendations, let me know, okay?
No problem.
That's super. Yeah.
No problem.
Of course, they won't be good recommendations.
Take a minute, talk to Paul
it.
before he goes. Come on, put the thing down, talk to him for a second. My sense when he first came here was that he was,
What's Benson been like?
he didn't feel wonderful about himself. He didn't have a real great self-image. I don't think he was wild, but I think he was, he wasn't quite as open. He was plotting more, or thinking more, or figuring out ways to get around the system, whatever system that might be, our system or school system or whatever, for survival, you know? He's a survivor.
For the first day or two, I was sort of, I didn't know what was going on, and, you know, I was just figuring things out, going through things smoothly, trying to find out, you know, really who these people were, what they were all about and stuff. And Tom just, you know, he didn't play no games, he just told me the rules and said, that's what's expected.
What is it really about? It's about understanding that when you've been tested and tested over and over again, you stand there and you say, and what's next? I'm here. You may never get the words, I love you. You may never get any kind of verbal or nonverbal cues of what it's like to be appreciated as a parent. And you have to feel good about what you're providing. And you have to continue to find ways to nurture each other and find support from friends and family so you don't burn out, to continue to be steady and create safe harbor.
Just stop right here. It's great going shopping with Tom because first time I went shopping with Tom is we were going down to the store, right? And I could have used some new clothes, and Tom says, grab a shopping cart, right? And I said, okay, fine, I'll probably be going around with him or something. And then I see him grab a shopping cart. And I says, we need 2 shopping carts? He goes, yeah, go fill it up. I'm like, whoa, this is wild. So I filled it up and stuff, and then we went into the fitting rooms and we tried on everything, and everything that fit we put in the cart again, and everything that didn't, we didn't. Then after everything that fit, then you had to decide what you wanted. And that was pretty funny at times.
When you're 6, let me know.
You know, it was fun throwing everything in the shopping carts and then deciding. We both hate making decisions.
Yeah, I like it.
So do I.
Let me see, wait a minute, let me see what's made.
Cotton, 100%.
Is it 100% cotton?
I think it is. Feels like
No, it's 50.
If I would put it that way, I would put Tom as a mother because he's like an old grandmother, you know. He's more of the disciplinary. He says more of the, no, you can't do this, yes, you know, you can go ahead and do this, or things like that. He more or less regulates what I do. And Jeremy, he's just more of a friend than anything else.
All right, we're going to need to add some substantial weight to this side. So we've done several different projects together. And, you know, I feel, I guess, if there's a role kind of a thing, there's a lot of brother kind of stuff that goes on, older brother kind of feeling that I get anyway. And it might be different from where Jody's standing, but... and so that's why my first response was, it's just there's a connection whenever I'm with him. I don't feel like I need to say a whole lot because I feel like I know where he's at and he knows where I'm at. It's almost as tough as rocket building, huh?
Jeremy, when it comes to making something like that he takes pride in, you have to do exactly what he says because he likes stuff just so way, you know. He can take mistakes, you know, you can make mistakes and stuff, but if you're screwing around or something and you screw something up, then he, you know, he figures there's no sense of you helping him or something.
Just like a surgeon, Jody. All right.
Hey guys, dinner will be ready in a short while.
Okay.
I won't go in for dinner until I'm done.
Apparently, Tom and Jeremy came along just in time for Jody. As watchful, experienced foster parents, they've helped him grab hold of a new life. But Mildred Ingram is not convinced. Her fear is that gay men like Tom and Jeremy might sexually abuse children in their care.
Well, of course, I'd like to see every child abuser ran right off the earth. That's why I feel they ought to be tarred and feathered, anybody that would abuse a child. But I do know that homosexuals, the only way they can sustain their lifestyle is to proselytize. And I don't want any child subjected to that.
Representative Ingram's fears are common, but Jody's response is unequivocal.
I don't think that Tom or Jeremy, neither of them, could ever do any damage, harm, emotional or physical, to any person at all. Not whatsoever. I don't even think joking around either of them would even try to say something or do anything.
Clearly, Jody has been treated with care and respect by Tom and Jeremy. But what about other gay men? Would they be likely to abuse foster children? Experts at Boston Children's Hospital say there are some gay child molesters, but Dr. Eli Newberger emphasizes that most child molesters are heterosexual men.
I think that the issue is not whether the men are gay. The issue is whether or not they're pedophiles. I'm not worried about adult sexual orientations. I'm worried about the risk of victimization of children. You can divide people into straights and gays. You can also divide them into pedophiles and non-pedophiles. It's the pedophiles, straight pedophiles, gay pedophiles, that I'm concerned about. I think that we don't have especially good tools, but it's very clear that all gays are not pedophiles. The data suggests that it is far more frequent, however, in heterosexual families than it is with homosexual families that children are susceptible to being sexually exploited. The problem here, however, is the mythology. We have, unfortunately, a kind of stereotyped understanding of what life in gay and lesbian families is like. My impression is that they're not very different from other families, and that indeed, when a child is given care in a gay or lesbian home, the child is a special, cherished person. I think that we've not sufficiently done justice to the strengths of homosexual families.
How's the water?
It's good.
Like a bath?
Yeah.
How many people do we have?
Ask your mom if she wants some of this. You got some.
Mom? Jody's mother, Lee, who is now friends with Tom and Jeremy, says she has never worried about Jody's safety with the two men.
I've known a lot of homosexuals, and I don't know, I've never noticed them being attracted to kids. I don't know, stuff like that doesn't enter my mind. You know, if one of them, you know, made a pass at one of my kids, then probably it would enter my mind. But, you know, until it happens, it's not a problem for me.
Well, Jody got the lettuce and the beans from the garden just before we made dinner. I just didn't cook it. This is plenty.
Well, we'll just see how he turns out. We'll see whether this influenced him or not.
In what way?
If he became gay, he's got nothing around him but that and their associates. They all live together. They're all associates. They live together. That's the only influence he'd have.
I don't know if there's enough cheese there for you, though.
Jody is not gay. Research on children in gay families is incomplete, but it's showing that children of homosexuals are no more likely to grow up gay than children of heterosexuals. Psychiatrist Sharon Satterfield.
The question should be, why do gay people who all come from heterosexual parents not grow up straight? Because almost all gay people have straight parents. So if one were to follow that logic, they would all grow up straight too. So there's something else, and we don't know what it is or if there's even one cause of being gay. But it doesn't seem to be just on the basis of having a role model as a parent.
Tom and Jeremy say Jody's sexual preference is up to him.
First of all, for us personally, we would rejoice in giving a person who comes into our life the space to be who they are. And we have no interest in, although we are proud of who we are, and we've done a lot of work to get to that point, it's a struggle, you know? It's not a life that we would try and suggest people go into. It's a life that we would celebrate and assist people in appreciating if that's the choice that they've made. Have you ever had Jerusalem artichokes?
Unlike Massachusetts, officials in New Hampshire have made the controversial decision to continue accepting gay men and lesbians as foster parents.
That was funny. That was when Tom told me that joke. No, that's when I told it to Randy.
So Jody remains with Tom and Jeremy in their home in rural New Hampshire.
Nice joke.
Sometimes in the evenings, the family sits down to meditate together, a practice Tom and Jeremy first taught Jody to help him slow down.
Before I came to Tom and Jeremy's, my life was probably abnormal to most 15, 16-year-olds. It's probably more normal now. Probably Mildred Ingram or whoever would make a statement like that would probably think that it's abnormal now, and it's not. It's more normal than before I came to Tom and Jeremy's.
Perhaps one of the things that we offer is that we know what it's like to be labeled. And this child coming to us was a labeled child. He was labeled as a juvenile delinquent. He was labeled as a troublemaker. He was labeled as someone who couldn't possibly succeed and was a problem to society. Well, we know what labels are all about. And so it was important that we could show him that we didn't buy any of that stuff, you know, and that he could show up, you know, he could come through all of that and be himself.
It was nice having someone that would take you for what you are and not what other people say you are. When I first went in the house, they knew where I was coming from because I had been labeled as a troublemaker, just someone not that nice to be around, and they knew that with a little work, anybody can change a little or a lot.
Very hard. Let me see. He has something there.
Well, I think when you do
In many ways, these are rather normal American families. They walk their dogs, practice push-ups on the kitchen floor, and try to balance love and discipline amidst the daily distractions of running a household. But the straight world can be very hard on gay families, and especially hard on the children, who must learn early how to shrug off homophobic comments and how to sort out who can be trusted and who can't. The difficulties, though, seem to have tapped strengths within these children.
And each tent had to do this.
Perhaps it's because, as Tom said, gay parents know what it's like to be different and can teach their children how to believe in themselves even when other people don't. But in the end, it's hard to make generalizations about gay families, except for this one from family therapist Sally Crawford.
The only thing that I see with any real consistency is that children who are attended to, children who are listened to, children who are responded to, are children who will turn out all right. And that quality of parenting doesn't know any class or race or ethnic or sexual preference boundaries.
Wow, thanks for being patient.
And that mom plus dad plus kids, in and of itself, is not enough. That there are other things that have to be there in order for children to get what they need.
Well, I guess we did all right, huh?
So far.
I believe children are our future. Teach them well and let them be the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride to make it easier. Let the children's laughter remind us how we used to be. I decided long ago never to walk in anyone's shadow. If I fail, if I succeed, at least I live the soul.
Since this program was completed, the state of New Hampshire has banned gay foster parenting. Tom and Jeremy managed to keep Jody until he was 18, but they have lost their foster parent license. Mildred Ingram died 9 months after the New Hampshire law was passed. The Massachusetts foster care policy remains in effect, pending a court decision. Presentation of this program is made possible in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, David P. Becker, and the Edward W. Hazen Foundation.